Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into an environment that is honestly deadlier to machines and way more hostile to biological life than the actual vacuum of outer space. You know, when we map out Earth's great frontiers, it's really easy to just look up at the cosmos. But the most baffling, extreme parameters of physics and biology on our entire world are actually hidden deep, deep underwater. We're talking about the Mariana Trench. Now, this isn't just some oceanic valley. It's a highly active subduction zone where massive tectonic plates are violently colliding in absolute pitch-black darkness. It's this crazy, localized crucible where the pressure alone can snap solid titanium alloys in a heartbeat. In fact, sending remote-operated vehicles down there actually yields a lower survival rate than launching probes to the moon. Communication signals just vanish, controlling buoyancy becomes an absolute nightmare, and structural integrity is tested to its literal limit. So we're going to unpack exactly what autonomous landers and deep-sea submersibles have managed to log down there, and more importantly, we're going to look at the anomalies that remain totally unexplained by modern oceanography.
To really grasp the sheer mind-boggling scale of this place, let's consider Mount Everest for a second, right? It's our standard metric for extreme height. Well, if you were to somehow invert Mount Everest, just flip it upside down and drop it point first into the Challenger Deep, which is the lowest known point of the trench, its 8.8-kilometer peak would still be completely covered by more than 2 kilometers of water. It's wild. The trench plunges to a staggering depth of nearly 11 kilometers. That's roughly 36,000 feet. At that depth, the water column above you creates an environment so radically divorced from surface conditions that it fundamentally alters how chemical reactions even occur. And the crazy thing is, the sheer vertical drop isn't even the most fascinating data point here. The real mystery starts where standard human reach abruptly ends, down in what's called the hadopelagic zone, a realm of total darkness where the constraints of life itself are pushed right to the breaking point.
All right, part 1, into the crushing darkness.
Imagine we're plunging into this abyss right now. The descent into the Hadal Zone is basically a rapid stripping away of absolutely everything that sustains normal surface life. First, you drop through the upper ocean zones, and the sunlight just slowly fades away until it is entirely gone by about 1,000 meters. From there on out, you are enveloped in absolute pitch blackness. Second, the thermal profile of the water changes incredibly fast. Temperatures plummet, hovering constantly between just 1 and 4 degrees Celsius, so practically freezing, but kept liquid by the extreme density of the water. But then comes the third and definitely the most terrifying factor, the pressure. As you sink deeper, this crushing hydrostatic weight builds up around you. It's this intensely hostile, uniform force that would instantly warp and completely obliterate any standard surface vessel. It turns what feels like a gradual descent into a highly lethal situation in a matter of seconds.
Once you hit the deepest pockets of the trench, the atmospheric pressure is roughly 1,000 times greater than what we experience up here at sea level. We're talking over 15,000 pounds per square inch. To put that into perspective, it's literally equivalent to the weight of thousands of massive elephants being stacked on top of you, crushing down from all directions at the exact same time. At this extreme level of pressure, water density actually increases, and the basic physical properties of materials just start to fail. Synthetic foam compresses, glass viewports risk catastrophic implosion, and honestly, even at a molecular level, the proteins in standard biological organisms would just be crushed completely out of shape, immediately stopping basic cellular functions. And yet, despite this lethal, unrelenting physical force, deep-sea probes keep capturing data showing active biological systems thriving down there. They are completely defying the standard laws of physiology.
Moving right along to part 2, the first human explorations.
You know, just mapping this hostile environment has required some really wild leaps in engineering over the years. Back in 1875, the crew of the HMS Challenger was meticulously surveying ocean depths. Now, they had absolutely no idea they were about to stumble upon history's most extreme geological feature. Using heavy lead weights and literally miles of rope and later on piano wire, it took them hours just to make a single sounding. They kept dropping the line and it just kept spooling out, eventually recording a depth of over 8,000 meters. It completely blew apart the contemporary understanding of oceanography. Fast forward to 1960, and we get the very first direct human encounter. Explorers Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh descended in the Trieste. This was a specially designed bathyscaphe that used a massive gasoline-filled float just for buoyancy, with a tiny, incredibly thick steel sphere for the crew to sit in. They spent nearly 5 hours slowly dropping into the freezing darkness, literally listening to the terrifying sounds of their vessel groaning under the immense pressure. Actually, at one point, an outer plexiglass window pane cracked. It sent a shockwave right through the cabin. But they eventually hit the seabed of the Challenger Deep, surviving in a space where even a single tiny structural failure meant instantaneous death.
But here is where it gets genuinely spooky. During that brief window at the bottom in 1960, peering through this tiny, heavily reinforced viewport into the freezing dark, they realized the ocean wasn't empty. The explorers reported seeing some movement on the pale, ooze-covered seafloor. Out there in the pitch black, disturbed by the lights of their vessels, something shifted. And to this very day, the exact nature of that movement remains completely unidentified in their logbooks. I mean, they fully expected to find an empty, lifeless geological void, something stripped of all biological potential by the extreme pressure. But instead, they found an active, living abyss. They had practically zero time to analyze it, though, before having to drop their iron ballast and start the long trip back up to the surface, leaving behind one of the most enduring scientific mysteries out there.
Which brings us nicely to part 3, strange sounds and alien life.
Over the years, we've sent autonomous hydrophones and deep-sea probes down into the trench, and they have captured some highly unsettling things. Specifically, they've recorded massive acoustic anomalies. Some of these audio captures, like the famous Western Pacific biotwang, feature sounds so incredibly intense, low-frequency, and powerful that researchers are still constantly debating where they come from. There's actually a fierce scientific divide over what could even generate such acoustics at 11,000 meters deep. Is it purely geological? I mean, the Mariana Trench is a convergent plate boundary, so these sounds could literally just be the Earth groaning as the Pacific plate violently grinds and subducts beneath the Mariana plate. But here's the catch. The acoustic signatures often closely mimic biological vocalizations or massive cavitation events. And that leaves open the staggering possibility of massive unknown marine life. Organisms capable of generating immense acoustic energy in an environment where visual communication is just impossible. Now, the extremophiles we actually have cataloged down there are wild. They require a completely different biological operating system just to survive. Remember that 15,000 psi pressure? To prevent their internal proteins from collapsing, these organisms use high concentrations of piezolites, like TMAO, which basically chemically shores up their cellular structures. Plus, survival in the pitch-black Hadal zone means using bioluminescence, and not just to see. They use it for complex chemical warfare. We're talking burglar alarms to startle predators, precise glowing lures for hunting, and even counter-illumination to camouflage themselves against the faint light filtering down from way above. We are looking at apex predators with transparent, glass-like teeth, and species like the bear-eye lifefish that have bizarre, fluid-filled cranial shields. These aren't just weird mutations. They are highly specialized, hyper-efficient evolutionary responses to an environment that is totally devoid of solar energy. They look completely sci-fi.
And finally, part 4, the ultimate unsolved mysteries.
The truth is, the deeper we map, the deeper the mystery gets. It's a sobering reality, but we actually have better, higher-resolution maps of the surface of Mars than we do of the Mariana Trench floor. The trench system itself forms this massive crescent-shaped scar on the Earth's crust that stretches over 2,500 kilometers long, and our high-resolution sonar has swept barely a fraction of this incredibly complex topography. Down there, you've got massive, jagged suboceanic ridges, deep hydrothermal vent fields, and hidden geographic pockets that remain totally untouched by any human instrument. This massive lack of data leaves us with a very real possibility. These isolated zones could be harboring entirely divergent ecosystems. We're talking life forms that rely on chemosynthesis instead of photosynthesis, completely isolated from the upper water column. The abyss is absolutely still hiding its biggest secrets.
So, with unmapped geological features, powerful, unexplained acoustic anomalies, and thousands of miles of unexplored blackness, we really are left to wonder what extreme biological variations could theoretically be surviving just out of our sight. Could an ancient giant, maybe a prehistoric anomaly like the megalodon, still exist down there in the dark? Or are there entirely undocumented, massive entities lurking in the extreme depths, relying on food webs we haven't even theorized yet? The sheer volume of completely unexplored space down there strongly suggests our current understanding of marine biology is woefully incomplete. The Mariana Trench is a stark reminder that no matter how technologically advanced our instruments get, the deepest, darkest pockets of our very own planet still have the power to humble us. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer into the abyss. Keep questioning what lies beneath.